Good morning, Halbstadt church family. It's good to be with you guys this morning. Unfortunately, we're doing this over screens and using technology rather than face to face. But yeah, I'm thankful that we do have these opportunities, and at the same time, I look forward to seeing you guys again. I hope that maybe later this year I can come back and actually be in person in your church with you guys together. That would be great. Yeah, but anyway, I look forward to just unpacking some of God's word, and yeah, we as a family have just had an interesting year, and even as a camp, I think each one of us, you guys can probably relate in your own ways. 2020 was definitely brought about some of the most unique challenges and circumstances that most of us have probably faced in our lives, and with every challenge, with every circumstance, also comes an opportunity, and I just always find that it's in times of reflection where we stop and we just have that pause and we look back. We can just see all the ways that God is working ahead of us. He's working around us, and in doing so, He's just creating opportunities for us to grow, opportunities to serve Him. And something that I've just found, me myself, but also even our staff team here at camp, asking this question, just continuously asking, what is fear? What is logic, and what is faith telling us to do as we navigate what lies ahead of us? For me personally, it seems that each year God just kind of lays out a theme in my life, and He just keeps building into that theme throughout the year. I know His desire is for me to grow as an individual, as well as a husband, a father, and a leader. But it always seems like this process has some uncomfortable parts. Where there's some stretching taking place, and while it's not always exciting in the moment. It's always in hindsight that we gain appreciation, or at least I gain appreciation and even just understanding of that. Yeah, for me, God's just been walking me through this season of growing in grace, both in the understanding of it and even in the application of it. A couple verses that have just kind of stuck out to me, or that He's just brought me to, is James 4, verse 6, and it says, but He gives more grace. That is why Scripture says, God opposes the proud, but shows favor to the humble. And it's this more grace that is really incredible. That moment that we accept Christ, that we make that decision, we enter into a relationship of grace. We receive God's grace, which is the only way to inherit and to walk into His salvation. And that's this entry point. It's introduction, if you want to call it that, to God. This introduction to a relationship, and but I really want to look at this morning is just unpacking this concept of God giving us more grace, and what does that look like? So we're talking about going past that born again moment, that salvation. And actually seeing what does it look like to receive more grace from God and then walk that out. Another verse that just kind of sticks out to me is Romans chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. It says this, therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. And I appreciate this concept of this introduction, this referencing of our free gift of salvation, but it means that there's more available if we're gaining access. And I just picture walking into a building, let's say a church building. If someone were to come through the doors, they come into the foyer, and they may gain a certain level of appreciation. Maybe it's brought them out of a circumstance. Maybe they're coming from something. And so they walk into this building and they feel the warmth. Maybe you've got pictures, a photo directory, or maybe you've got missionary pictures up, and there's just an immediate warmth as you enter into this church building. Maybe there's people already in here, and you see some fellowship happening amongst the people in this foyer, and it's just it's a comfortable, it's an awesome place to be. And yet at the same time, if we didn't walk past that access point, if we didn't walk further in and explore what the church is doing, what the church has to offer, we would miss out on so many awesome things. We'd miss out on the teaching. We'd miss out on the deeper fellowship. We'd miss out on the worship, and we'd miss out on many great things. And so when I read this passage in Romans, and I just think of this grace that we entered into, I see our salvation as this entry point, and it's necessary, and we need it. But God has so much more. He has so much more that He desires for us to walk into, and so much more that He desires for us to bring to His people, all around us, in whatever circles we're in, whether it's our school, whether it's jobs, whether it's our church family, our friends. There's so many different places, and and so from that perspective, or from that frame of reference, I've just been just thinking on what Jesus lists as the two greatest commandments. So Matthew chapter 22, Mark chapter 12. Jesus is under scrutiny. He's being pressed by these Pharisees, and of course it's for the sake of entrapment. But they're always pressing. They've always got these questions, and he has a unique way of answering without actually answering, and he never gives them the direct response they want, but he gives them something far greater. And for those whose eyes are open to see, whose eyes are open to receive, they understand, and they're blessed by Jesus' words and his explanations. For those whose hearts are hard, they miss it. They just don't get it, and it's got to be really frustrating. But anyway, Jesus lists these two greatest commandments as the greatest commandment being loving the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second greatest command is loving our neighbor as ourselves. So it's actually going to walk out that which we receive from this relationship with God. And so yeah, just considering that, looking at that, and so anyway, this morning, I'd really like to just unpack Matthew chapter 5, verses 3 to 10. So if you guys are looking in your Bibles, you'll probably see a heading, the Beatitudes, and we also know this is the introduction to the Sermon on the Mount. So we have this great message that Jesus leaves us with of how to live, but more than that, how to live well. And he opens it with these Beatitudes. And so I'm just going to read them, and then we'll unpack them further. So he says this, starting in verse 3. So again, this is Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 3. It says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. And blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Yeah, I remember reading through these, as I was growing up, and it was just wrestling through these words. What does it mean to be poor in spirit? Is this are we talking? What kind of poverty are we looking at? And just wondering, how is that how we get into the kingdom of heaven? And just wrestling through some of the stuff, and it's just been interesting throughout this past years. God's just been bringing me back to this repetitively, and just unpacking it maybe differently than I've previously understood it, or just previously read it even. And so this morning that's what I'd like to unpack with you guys, and hopefully there's something that just speaks to you guys, and maybe there's something you can take away from it, something you can apply or pray through. And anyway, I think these Beatitudes have often been referenced as the attitudes of the kingdom. So it's God's kingdom mentality that He desires for us to clothe ourselves in, and to actually apply to our lives. And I think these Beatitudes can also be used as a bit of a measuring stick, if you will, just to analyze, or to unpack our maturity in Christ. Where are we actually at? Are we desiring more? Are we moving forward and growing? Or are we content with where we're at? And so I would even go so far as to call it a measuring stick as to our maturity in Christ. And this is going to take us further than loving our friends. There's those people that we really enjoy having around us. We just enjoy being in their presence. Maybe they're our friends, maybe they're our family, maybe it's someone in work or school or in different places we're interacting. And it's just so easy to love on those people. It's so easy to feel loved by those people. And that's great. But Jesus is calling us into something deeper. He's opening a door for something completely different and completely countercultural, where he's actually wanting us to express that love, that joy, that friendship with people that are hard to love, with those people that we'd rather weren't in our circles. And so it's going to take us further than definitely our comfort zones, further than we would just naturally step into. And it's actually inviting us or challenging us, maybe even is a better word, kind of to set ourselves up as a draw in other people's lives. Where we're actually drawing people in because they see Christ. Anyway, so let's look at this first beatitude. It says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." And so this poor in spirit, I believe, are those that are aware of their spiritual need. They're aware of their condition and their desperate need for God to intervene, to restore, to be present in it. And so we're not talking or looking at somebody that's financially poor or struggling. I mean, that may be the case, but it has nothing to do with our financial standing and everything to do with our spiritual standing. And so we're looking at someone that's aware of the gap between where they are and where they know or believe God wants them to be. So there's an awareness of the fullness and freedom in Christ, and yet there's also a pursuit to grow in that. And so Jesus is saying, blessed are those that see the gap. They're not content with being saved and forgiven. They're not content with that entry or that introduction or that access point, but rather they're continuously pursuing more from Christ. So we received that introduction to grace when Jesus died on the cross, but the more grace is actually walking in freedom, actually laying down all the things that hold us back, laying down the things that just weigh us down, and actually pursuing. So moving forward, right? Pursuit of that freedom. And so Jesus is referencing Spirit here because it's the work of the Spirit in us that's going to complete this work. It's not something we're going to accomplish by our strengths. It's something that we're gonna journey towards by pursuing Christ more, and it's the feeding of the Spirit in us that's going to grow in power in our lives. So the second beatitude, it seems similar to the first one, and yet there's a shift that's taken place here. There's a movement forward that's taken place, and it says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted." So to mourn is actually to feel the pain of the gap. So we started off by seeing this poverty in the spirit. So we've identified this gap, but to mourn is to actually grieve what's missing. Many of us can identify with mourning. Many of us have lost a family member or a loved one, a friend, and there's an undeniable, there's a gap there. We feel what's missing, and we yearn for it, and it hurts. And here Jesus is referencing this in the context of our spirit, of our internal being, if you want to call it that. And so we're going past identifying the gap, but now we're actually yearning for something more. We're yearning to move past and respond to what we identify. And I think that this is a unique thing in the sense that sometimes we're completely unaware of this gap. We can get really comfortable in our circumstances, and for many of us, myself included, it's so easy to make excuses. We just become content, and so easy just to lean on these excuses. We all do it to one extent or another, and it's always easy to see when someone else is making that excuse, right? We see it in someone else, and we just identify it, and yet the Lord is continuously drawing it back to ourselves, and He wants it for that personal relationship with each one of us. But we make these excuses, right? Like, boys will be boys, and we can just write things off. Someone's made a poor decision or a poor choice, and instead of just pausing and saying, hey, you know what, we actually messed up, let's address it, we just write it off with these casual responses, and And it's just so easy to do. And Jesus is saying, no, guys, hold on. There's more here. And so this morning is actually a desperate need to change our lifestyle. And so we identify what's not from God in our lives, and we desperately pursue the freedom and the change that only He's going to bring. And I really believe this is incredibly countercultural, even in Christian circles. We're constantly bombarded with this media and our culture and our society, and it just keeps saying you should feel good. Life can always be great. You do you. This is as good as it gets. We have all these things, and I would chalk these all up to excuses, because I believe they just breed contentment, and God really is trying to get a hold of us here, and He's trying to call us into something deeper than just comfort in the immediate. And I don't believe that He wants us to be acclimated to being broken, and so He's calling it out. He's saying this is a lie. And He's saying if you long for freedom, if you're gonna grieve what's missing, and if you long to grow in grace, then you'll be comforted. He's gonna bring His comfort in replacement of. And so this is His invite to being desperate to grow in grace and seeing that gap actually getting smaller. And I really believe that in this there needs to be a tension in this process, though, because I don't believe we should be discontent in the sense of being ungrateful, but discontent in the sense that we long for something more. And so I believe there needs to be a tension in this process where we're actually able to rejoice in what we've received, and yet at the same time longing for something more, and just actually walking in confidence that Christ desires more. And so there's that tension in our heart where I don't believe we need to verbalize it. God knows our heart. He knows our actions. He can identify that longing for something more, and yet an honest contentment with where we're at. The next beatitude is, blessed are those that are meek, for they will inherit the earth. And meekness isn't just a mindset of how we serve others. It is that, and yet it's more. It's also an attitude of how we view our resources. And I know for most of us, we hear the word resources, we immediately think financial, right? It's like, yeah, that's my resources. That's what I've earned. That's what I have available. But I think our resources are much more than that. Otherwise, this would only be written to those that are wealthy, and it's not. It's written to everyone. And if we know the individuals that Jesus rubbed shoulders with, it's undeniably everyone. And so resources goes past finances. I believe it would include our time, our energy, our money, our influence, even our words. We have so many, I don't know if you want to call it things, so many avenues with which to impact people. And I think we underestimate the impact we can actually have with these things. And there's more than just these items and resources. These were just some of the ones that just came to my mind as I was kind of processing this. And so typically, these resources, they're ours. We've earned them. We've worked for them. We consider, well, how do we spend our time? How do we use our words, our influence, our money? Well, we've earned it. We've worked for it. We've put in this consistent effort, and this has now become ours. And so we decide how we use them. And I think Jesus is trying to turn this thought process. He's trying to turn this mindset actually upside down. He's turning it on its head, saying, no, those are actually my resources, and I'm allowing you to steward them for me. And if we can actually come to a mindset like that, it's going to be really confrontational to how we use our resources. It's going to cause us to really go deep in thought. If we see it as us investing God's resources, well, that has to challenge how we use them. Then it's got to require us to put more thought into how we use them. Do we consider our time an investment for God? Because then there's things that I actually want to make less time for, and there's going to be other things I want to make more time for. It's going to be confrontational internally as I'm faced with these decisions, and if I'm starting to look at this as, am I investing or am I wasting? Well, that changes everything. and it's going to really require some deep thought into just how we use these things. Again here, Jesus is saying, no, these aren't yours, they're mine. And I want you to actually see yourself and believe and feel in your heart that you're giving them over to me. That way, when you use them, you'll actually see them as the Lord's. He's giving us this opportunity to steward these resources for the sake of building His kingdom. So there's not going to be a whole lot of personal accolades in this. Actually, it's a humble process. There's a real humility that's going to need to come over us in order for us to actually let these things go and see it as just finding freedom, just finding joy, and knowing that God's getting the glory as we use what really sometimes feels and we want to be ours. So I believe when we submit our resources to the Lord, instead of concerning ourselves with our bank account or our net worth or what people think of us or how many followers we have, the Lord is saying that's meekness, and you're going to inherit the earth. It's interesting. The only words that Jesus ever used to describe Himself was meek, and so I believe there's an added weight to this that we should really be considering. And we know that that Jesus gave up everything, right? He gave up all His authority, all His power to take on this human form, this flesh form on earth. In order to completely submit Himself to the Lord's will. So when Jesus says, when we talk about inheriting the earth, I believe He's actually just quoting Psalm 37, not just, but He's actually quoting Psalm 37. David uses this phrase 5 times, to inherit the earth. And what this really means is to gain influence here on earth. We're aware that there's nothing of significant value, of eternal value here on earth. So there's not an inheritance here physically that we're really striving for, but rather there's an influence here on earth that we can strive for, not for personal gain, not for personal accolades, but again, to see God glorified, to see His kingdom advance, to see His kingdom grow. So by us using our resources, carrying this mindset of meekness, we're going to inherit the earth. So we're going to see influence increase. We're going to have more opportunities to share His gospel. We're going to have more opportunities to share this freedom that we so freely inherit. The next beatitude is, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So it's not enough to just see the gap. We're supposed to see the gap and identify it. We're supposed to long for more and long for what's missing in order so that we grow in grace. And we're supposed to commit our resources to the Lord. We're supposed to carry this attitude of meekness. And after that, He's taking it a step further now. And He's saying, I want you to hunger and thirst for righteousness. So Jesus is saying that He actually wants to see righteousness come around us because we're walking out His words. So as we commit ourselves to the Lord's service, as we intercede for those that God's placed around us, God also wants us to crave for wholeness in the lives of those people that He's placed around us. So this is taking it to a whole nother level. So we're stepping off of that submission place where we surrender our resources to God, but now we're going to go one step further, and we're actually going to crave that those around us can find freedom. They can find freedom in Christ. And so obviously this is easily done to those we care for, those we love, those who we enjoy being around. It's not limited to those. He's actually calling for us to crave it in those that we don't long for, in those that we don't really enjoy being around. We live in such a contentious time right now where everything is about division. Everything's about picking sides, right? Where we stand on COVID, where we stand on masks, where we stand on a political front, where we stand on abortion. We've got all these hot topics, and they're just becoming so heated. It's not even a choice anymore. Now it's like you have to pick a side because it's contentious, and God is calling us to crave for a wholeness in the people on the other side, if we want to call it that. Maybe the side that disagrees with us, the side that even angrily disagrees with us. We're supposed to crave for a wholeness in their life. We're actually supposed to yearn to intercede for them so that they may be set free. Not saying that whatever side you stand on is the right side and the other side needs to be set free, but that our heart actually yearns for that, regardless of where they stand and which side they're actually on. Yes, and so anyway, the promise that follows that Jesus lists here is that we'll be filled. We're not talking about an immediate or just a temporary filling here. We're talking about a true filling, an eternal filling, a long-lasting filling, one that brings peace, one that brings joy. It's God's definition of a filling. So the Lord wants us to spend our time in prayer. It takes meek people to invest in prayer. I think so often we work on our own strengths, right? Regardless of how proud, how humble we are, wherever we envision ourselves to be on the scale of, from proud to humble, no matter where we're at, there's a level of pride in each one of us. And there's a requirement to just daily lay that down, daily submit that to God. But I know for each one of us, it's different. And yet at the same time, how often when we see a need or a hurt or just a lack around us, we just jump right in. We just want to use our perceived abilities, our perceived resources to immediately fix the problem. And we see it right across the globe. I mean, social justice has become just an exploding idea in every way, shape, and form. And it's growing in movement, it's growing in power, and yet it lacks the one thing that would make it real, the one thing that would actually bring about a true change, and that's Christ. We just want to fix the immediate problem. Oh, this group, this people, this thing, they're hurting. Let's just fix that problem. And the reality is that problem is from a much deeper rooted issue. And unless we're going to bring restoration through Christ, we're going to completely miss the point. We're going to miss the complete opportunity. And so it's going to require us in humility to intercede. It's going to require us in humility to be on our knees in prayer, asking the Lord to do His work, to bring about His restoration. And so this is going to confront ourselves. If we have a lack of prayer, if we have a lack of hunger for righteousness, it should actually be a sign of sickness. We'll call it a spiritual sickness, just for lack of a better term. We all identify the signs when we're ill, right? If you're congested, you're coughing, you have a sore throat, something's achy, you can identify when things aren't right, and something's at work in your body. So your body's up against something. There's a bit of a confrontation here, and your body's needing to overcome it. I really believe that if we don't have a lack of hunger for righteousness, if we don't have a lack of hunger for others around us, and we have a lack of prayer in our life, this should be that sign that we've got a spiritual sickness, and we need to come up against that. We need to bring God into that so that we can restore that and bring wholeness to ourselves. We'll call it the spiritual ICU. We need to identify when we're in a spiritual ICU, and it's God that's going to bring us out of that. It's pursuing Him, worshiping Him that's going to restore that in our lives. And this is common, so don't feel like anyone's being singled out here. To an extent, we've all got this, and we all need to address it, and we all need to daily address it, so that we're moving forward. But again, this is going to confront the mindset of it is what it is. This is as good as it gets. That place of complacency or contentment, whatever you call it, this is going to confront that. Because it's not as good as it gets. God has something infinitely greater, infinitely more magnificent that He wants to bring about in our lives and through our lives to those around us. And so Paul references this as well. In Philippians 3, he's talking about pressing on, and he says that he presses in to lay hold of that which I was laid hold of by God. And so he had this immense conviction from the Lord, and this intensely personal meeting, confrontational meeting with the Lord, and he's going to press in to lay hold of that which the Lord laid hold of him in. We'll move on. The next beatitude: blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The Lord says they will have a deep sense of awe and wonder because they will see God. So pure in heart means our actions, our motives, our attitudes, our morals. I think now more than ever, these things are being put on display. There's such an exposing happening right now. We just see it in our culture, in our society, all around us, just on every level. The light is just shining into dark areas, and I think this is an incredible time to do a self-check on ourselves. What are our motives behind our things? What is the attitude that drives our choices and the places that we put ourselves in? Where does our moral compass really stand, and why? We may have convictions on certain moral issues, but do we actually know why? Do we actually take the time to sit down and say, why do I feel this way? Why do I believe this? So that it's grounded in Christ, not grounded in our feelings or grounded in what someone else told us. Not saying that what they told us is wrong, but if we don't actually know it and believe it, it's going to be really hard to stand on it when pressure increases. And so the Lord is saying, blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are those that purify their actions, motives, morals, choices, for they will see God. This is incredible. If we think of any time in Scripture where someone sees a spiritual being, whether they have an encounter with an holy angel, when they have that encounter where the Lord just gives them a glimpse of his beauty, of his wonder, most of them can't see it. They can't look at it. They fall to their knees and they shield themselves because it's so intense. And here we're told that blessed are the pure in heart, for we will see God. This is an incredible promise. This is an incredible opportunity. And I don't believe that it's just by making the right choices that we're going to see God. It's not that we lose God when we've made the wrong choice. So I don't want to give the impression or try and mislead that we're going to somehow earn this experience. I don't want to miscommunicate that. But I do believe our capacity increases as we purify our motives, our attitudes, our morals. Just a personal experience with the Lord. So the next beatitude is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. The peacemakers are the ones that are going to use their resources to bring the peace. So whether that's finances, whether that's our influence, our words, our actions, or our physical items, our belongings, we're going to use those to actually make peace. For they will be called children of God. So the peacemakers are going to bring the peace, and they're going to receive that title. They're going to receive that identity of being children of God. What's going to require us to do is we're going to have to stand in the gap for the broken, and this is not enabling. Yes, we're not called to enable. I want to create that distinction. This is actively engaging in spiritual battles. This is going to take a process of humility, of meekness. This is going to require us to yearn for righteousness and wholeness in others. And we're going to engage in spiritual battles. It's sacrificing our time, our money, for the sake of restoration. It's going to take a lot of energy, and it's going to come at a cost. And I want to say this is harder than being a peacekeeper. Peacekeepers, more often than not, will enable. They'll sweep things under the rug. They will try to create an immediate peace of a situation rather than confronting the actual issue, because momentarily it feels really good to restore peace. It feels good to be I don't know, in the mindset or feeling like, hey, we worked it out, we moved through it. That's different, and I want to distinguish that, because we're called to make peace, and making peace requires truth, and it requires restoration, because we're going to confront the obstacle. We're going to confront it so that we can move through it and actually bring restoration. So it's going to be infinitely harder, and it's going to be longer lasting and way more rewarding. And so our identity becomes children of God. And so I want to clarify that this identity isn't from the Lord. It's not that he's calling us his children, because he did that when we entered into grace. When he put his seal over us, he called us his children. So we're not going to earn it by serving him, because he's already freely given that through grace. but rather we're going to earn that title by those around us, by non-believers. We're going to earn that title by the people that God puts in our path, because as we bring Christ's aroma to earth, as we carry his influence and we walk that out, they're going to see and identify us as children of God. So that is the blessing. Others will say it. Others will see it and identify it. So again, it's not about personal recognition, but this is about personal obedience. The next beatitude is, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of... Oh, sorry, misread that. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. We're told to be glad and rejoice, because the Lord sees this, and he's going to reward us in the age to come. Even a little in this age, I really believe it. We see it all the time, where there is a reward in it, and yet there's an infinitely greater reward coming in the age to come. There's a verse in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 14. It says, blessed are those who are persecuted, because the Spirit of God rests on them. Isn't this a beautiful picture? The Spirit of God resting on you. We see this when Jesus was baptized, and the Spirit of God rested on him, right? We see this in Acts 2 in the time of Pentecost, when the Spirit of God, these tongues of fire, they rested on people. God's Spirit was resting on them. There's a significant power in it, and there's an excitement in it. What a thing to behold! What a thing to look forward to and to press into. And so Jesus is saying here, blessed are those who are persecuted, because of the Spirit of God rests on them. But we're moving past that, and we're going to say, what does it take to press on? You know, when we're being persecuted, God's not saying, hey, blessed are you when you're persecuted and you fall back, or when you run, when you flee from the obstacle. There's something more. If we're going to face the persecution, if we're going to stand in that opposition and that pressure, it's going to take a sacrifice, but it's going to be a choice. Are we going to stay firm? Or are we going to draw back? And so I really believe the blessing here is when we don't quit, when we don't draw back because of the fear of man, or because it costs too much. So it's a significant choice to stand up against when it's difficult. And Jesus is simply saying, this is the greatest life. If we're going to walk out the greatest commandments, then we're going to live the greatest life. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not a destination. This is a journey. And so maybe you're looking at these today and you're saying, I don't know, maybe. But I would challenge you to ask God, is there one of these areas I can step into today? Is there something I can work towards starting today? Maybe you start at step one and say, God, would you just open my eyes to see the gap? Could I just see the areas in which I need to let go and hand over to you, God? Is there something I need to be freed from? Is there a weight, a heaviness, a brokenness, a hurt that I just need to surrender and lay down at your feet today, God? Growing takes time. We don't see a plant come up overnight. We plant that seed and we just take tender care of it in hopes that we see the fruit later. And God's calling to do that in our own lives so that we can extend that to those around us. Let's pray in closing. God, thank you so much for your word. Father, I thank you for just this invitation, Lord, into something greater. I thank you for opening that door and giving us access into eternity, Father, through your Son, Jesus. And God, I thank you that you desire even more, Lord. You desire for us to find freedom. You desire for us to walk in freedom, Lord. And you desire to carry our burdens for us, God. God, we're so unworthy and at times so ungrateful, Lord. And so, Father, I just pray, Lord, would you just open our eyes to see it, to identify it, and just give us a hunger, Lord, for something more, something deeper. Give us a hunger for your word and a hunger, Lord, for those around us, that we may live it out in such a way that it impacts them and they see you in us. God, would you Yeah. Would you give us a hunger, Lord, to be identified as your children, even in a world that opposes it, even in a world that oppresses it and tries to silence it, Lord? Would you give us a hunger to be identified as your children by those that don't even know you yet, Lord? Yeah. God, I just pray a covering over each one of us as we move forward, as we desire to grow in our faith and grow in our relationship with you. We just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Be blessed.